It's time for Image in the 90s. And today we're talking about WildCATS number 3. That's right, Covert Action Teams. We've been going through this over the last couple episodes. We talked about issue 1 and issue 2. Now we're talking about issue 3. When we last saw the WildCATS, they were trying to stop the Kabal's evil plot to bring a portal open to bring the Damonites in to invade Earth, right? And they were stopped by Youngblood. So let's get into it. We kick off with this awesome splash of Maul, not Darth Maul, but just regular-ass Maul, and they finally start, through some exposition captions, explaining Maul's powers, that he gets bigger, and the bigger he gets, the tougher he gets. They don't quite go into the nuance of what's going on with his intellect, but they do kind of allude to it, right? And then we have this big show-off between Youngblood and WildCATS. Now, WildCATS 3 was supposed to be the end of the WildCATS miniseries, and it was supposed to be a big, polybagged, double-sized issue. The book was late. Jim Lee said, you know what, let's just cut it in half and put it the fuck out, because we're being plagued with lateness here at Image Comics. But you get this nice splash. We're about to have some shit go down. And then you get another splash of shit going down. Maul gets bigger, just goes ham, starts taking out the Youngblood dudes, and a fight ensues. So Spartan's lost his arm. We saw that in the last issue. And we got them just going ham right now with Voodoo all confused. They're in the corner. And then Die Hard and Bedrock, still called Bedrock, by the way. I guess they hadn't had to change the name yet. Because if you didn't know, Rob Liefeld had to change the name of this character from Bedrock to Badrock because of Flintstones. Some shit, which sounds ridiculous to me. Bedrock is literally the name. It's a noun. But anyway, some really cool Jim Lee artwork here. The coloring is pretty decent, but you do get a lot of those orangey browns throughout that kind of muddy things up. You got a little bit of Chapel versus Spartan right here. He's already lost one arm, and he's getting just decked again. He's getting bodied by Chapel. A lot of exposition explaining that, Spartan, by the way, is an android. Because you don't know that. Like, the book doesn't do a good job of explaining things, and then they just briefly, oh, by the way, yeah, he's cybernetic. Y'all didn't know that? Y'all didn't know that at all? And then, of course, Shaft attacks with a sonic arrow, and he's trying to pull it all together, and we're also learning through the narration who Youngblood is and what their functions are. And right now, they are bodyguards to Dan Quayle. At the time, in 1993 when this book came out, but in 92 when the story is set, he was the vice president of the United States. He is actually, his body has been taken over by a Damonite, okay? And he's trying to cause this doomsday thing, right? And that's why Youngblood's fighting the WildCATS, right? Meanwhile, Pike and this Chakotay sister, they dip out because they know that Grifter and Zealot are not there. So that means that Maul and the rest are just distractions. So then we cut to this scene, y'all. Jim Lee criminal himself, man. Do you remember that scene in X-Men #1 with Wolverine and Psylocke and Gambit going through the sewers, in that training exercise or whatever the fuck? That's straight up what that is, right? Anyway, they're on their way to try to find Hellspawn and the Kabal and stop them from doing what they're doing. So Hellspawn's there with McCoy. McCoy is a Damonite who's trying to unleash the power of this orb to open a portal to their homeworld of Damon and bring the Damonite invasion in. That's the stakes. That's what's going on. And then Pike and the Chakotay sisters show up right as Zealot and Warblade and Grifter and Lord Imp, Jacob Marlowe, show up. So they show up, a fight ensues. McCoy's like, screw this. I'm going to go into Damonite form and just take out these motherfuckers. And then immediately gets taken out by Warblade. This was the moment that I remember reading this book when it first came out and being like, Warblade's fucking badass. Obviously, Grifter was my favorite. He's going to become everybody's favorite. So much focus gets put on him and Zealot, and I love those two. But Warblade's awesome, and aside from the orange just mess in the background, this is a really nice spread. Warblade just going ham and lets us know a little bit about a backstory. Maybe that will be developed further. Then we cut to, what's his name? It's Lord Gnome right? There's this dude. He's actually playing the Kabal against the WildCATS, against IO. He's setting it all up because he wants the orb. He wants to open the portal. Why? I don't know. But this is just to remind us that they're the ones who are actually the bad guys, not the bad guys who are being fought right now by the WildCATS. Anyway, we get more of Maul just tearing ass. He keeps getting bigger and bigger. They realize that the bigger he gets, the more unstable he's going to become. He's going to bring the house down and kill everybody. They got to let Youngblood understand that they're on the same side. So Voodoo, for the first time, consciously uses her powers outside of just being a dancer at a strip club. She uses her powers to shut down Maul's mind. And it ends a little bit of stuff. And therefore, Youngblood's like, y'all, you just saved our lives? Wait, I think there's something more going on. So then Dan Quayle goes crazy. He's like, I'm going to kill this chick right now. And Shaft's like, yo, you can't do that. Dan Quayle goes crazy. Youngblood's like, yo, somebody better explain what's going on. Shaft is about to tear some ass. Then there's this big psychic blast that happens, and they remove the Daemonite entity from Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle's going to be okay. Maybe that's the reason why he couldn't spell potato. Meanwhile, we go back to Hellspawn, the Kabal, the rest of the Kabal, battling the WildCATS. Void, a little bit of Void and Lord Imp action right there. Some pretty cool colors on this page. Could be a little bit more detail there in the backgrounds. And then Zealot and Grifter doing their thing. So just big action splashes. They're fighting these dudes. Things are getting higher. Stakes are coming up. You get a nice ass shot of Zealot from Jim Lee. Zealot's about to take some people out. She's about to get hardcore. Hellspawn shows up, use his psionic ability to just nullify her brain, knock her out, and now the Kabal has won. However, the portal opens without them doing anything. They're like, what? Turns out it's Lord Gnome, but Hellspawn's like, hell yeah, bring on the invasion. And that is WildCATS issue number 3. Once again, decently solid. I mean, they're not changing lives with WildCATS, but it's got good, solid artwork. The artwork does feel a bit rushed in times. There are nice splashes where it doesn't feel rushed, but towards the end of the issue, you can feel the urgency in the line, right? Scott Williams, of course, doing great work there. Coloring, once again, just too much orange and brownie shit in the background. It's something that gets talked about a lot. With the coloring when it was going on then, and it even happens today. The book doesn't do a good job of clearly telling us the story. It just literally has to give us bits and tidbits and exposition. But it is exciting artwork if you were an X-Men fan in those days. If you liked Jim Lee, this was the book for you. And I still love the Hellspawn design. I still love what Jim Lee was doing here. Brandon Choi was not doing a great job with the script. It's exposition-y. The lettering is pretty bad. I'll be honest with y'all. I do not like the lettering. Like the fonts, especially the Hellspawn font and the Daemonite stuff, like that's all cool. But the placement of the word balloons on most pages doesn't really work, and it actually confuses reading in a few pages in this issue in particular. This is probably my favorite page in the entire issue. I think it's absolutely amazing. This whole gnome thing, whatever. Like, there are parts of the story that are intriguing enough, but this is just made to be kind of big, explosive, bombastic, and to hopefully make a TV show and sell action figures. And they did, but not to the extent of things like, say, Spawn or even the X-Men. But at the same time, I'm enjoying it. So I forget what I gave WildCATS number 1 and 2. I would give this the same. I want to say that I gave them a 3.5, but at this point, I'm being very forgiving. I'm going to say 4 ya digs, because it's progressing the story. It's letting us know a little bit. Nah, I got to be honest. I can't. It's 3.5. This book is a 3.5. Story's kind of weak. It's got some interesting concepts, but it's got some dope art. But the art itself is a bit rushed at times. So here's my copy of WildCATS number 3, of which I will officially give a 3.5. I think that's what I gave 1 and 2. It's all pretty consistent though. But really cool stuff. Love these old ads. Love having the actual issues. This doesn't have any annoying like image zero ads breaking up these double page spreads. They look well. It's actually, the colors print well on the printed page. It feels like they were kind of figuring it out a little bit more. But the oranges still kind of bother me. But on the printed page, as opposed to a screen, it doesn't bother me as much. But like, so Spartan is an android. You don't know that. you don't know that. They don't explain nothing. The only time they really explain anything is when you get a really heavy, verbose caption. But it is exciting, and all this was trying to do was just be exciting and fun. There's my favorite page right there. So we're showing you it again. But yeah, this is absolutely still a fun revisit. I love that Hellspawn design. So overall, 3.5 for WildCATS. I'm loving going through and revisiting these. We'll wrap up the first mini-series with issue number 4. We'll do that next time here on Image in the 90s.